What originally looked like a cool knockoff Devil May Cry game turned out to be one of the most generic and just boring games I got to play this year. I don't take pleasure in giving this review to this game, but I didn't take pleasure in playing it either. Devil's Hunt feels like a long-lost teen drama that you'd find on the CW. It's cliché with characters I simply didn't care about. It stars an upper-class man named Desmond Pierce. He's the heir to his family's fortune, lives in a beautiful home, is dating the girl of his dreams. His life is perfect. Alas, it doesn't last, and through a series of pitfalls, Desmond finds himself at rock bottom. Actually, deeper than rock bottom. He's in hell in front of Lucifer himself. With no one else to turn to, Desmond strikes a deal with the devil. Collect all the souls that Lucifer wants, and he'll return Desmond's life to how it used to be. Despite what every folktale has ever said to never make a deal with the devil, Desmond agrees, taking him on a journey into the deepest and darkest corners of the earth and hell. While at times the story does have its high points, it mostly fell flat for me over the 7-hour campaign. Characters would often flip-flop on their motivations, abilities would just randomly appear in the story only to never be explained or elaborated on again, just needing to take everything at face value. It only gets more difficult to keep track of the many plot points getting added in without explaining or going in depth with the ones already established. It just comes off as messy, and by the middle of it, I was at the point that every reviewer dreads, being in a game you no longer want to play but now need to finish for a review. That's never a good sign. At first glance, I think a lot of people would just mistake this as a knockoff Devil May Cry game. I know I did when I first saw the key art. This is entirely different though. Devil's Hunt plays more like a third-person adventure boxing game. Desmond travels around the depths of hell fighting off waves and waves of enemies. I would say the only similar aspect to DMC would be the freakishly cool arm that Desmond has and how every enemy encounter is confined to this mini sandbox area before being able to proceed to the next area. Desmond from the get-go is able to do a series of light and heavy jabs with a superpowered demon arm. As you defeat enemies and collect their souls, their energy can be reinvested into Desmond's skill tree. By increasing the nodes on the skill tree, you'll unlock new abilities that can be mapped onto Desmond's skill wheel on the face buttons of the controller. These new combat powers could be something like a large shockwave or a ground-shaking punch to the floor. There's a total of 3 skill trees with each one acting differently. The executor, for example, transforms Desmond's arm into a demon fist, while the unholy tree lets Desmond heal himself. They're cool additions to the combat and easily were the most exciting parts of fighting. Sadly, that's not saying much because the combat here is staler than the discounted loaf of bread at the back of a Kroger supermarket. Desmond feels slow, heavy, and sluggish despite being a scrawny looking character with a superpowered arm. He can't lock on to enemies at all, which means there were long periods of time where I would just swing away trying to hit anything nearby only to miss. Over time it eventually just became button mashing, and even though it worked eventually, it wasn't very fun. Despite the occasional variation in enemies, I never felt forced to change my playstyle because just mashing light and heavy attacks usually got the job done. The flare of everything quickly died down when I would encounter a boss that felt more like an attack sponge. I didn't feel challenged, just petted down to extend the fighting lane. Outside of its combat, Devil's Hunt also features a handful of platforming sections that feel terribly executed. I use the term platforming very lightly here. Sometimes Desmond needs to make a 1-foot drop from a rock or climb down a pedestal. I can't just simply walk off the ledge, and instead I have to wait for a quick time marker to come up and press the A button. Later sections even gave me a teleporting power, but sadly only one that I could use at a certain point with quick time events. This felt like a missed opportunity to include it in combat and chain some combos together. All in all, I was just disappointed with Devil Hunt's gameplay. The combat feels like it has some good rooted ideas that were just left in the concept stage, executed poorly to the point of creating a button mashing fighting style. Platforming and puzzles are incredibly watered down quick time sections that feel like the most pointless use of interact point sequences. I was a little baffled on this one. I was running Devil's Hunt on a GTX 1060 with an i7-4790K, and I hit so many technical hiccups. It really shouldn't be that intensive of a game. I was able to run something like Control perfectly fine on high settings before with the 60 frames per second mark. While I was able to get a high 60 to 80 frames per second on this game in high to epic settings at 1080p, it was never consistent. I would run into areas where the frame rate would quickly drop down 20 to 30 frames. Combat would stutter and animations would just jump cut from one to another. There isn't even an option to lock the frame rate on PC. It just broke the immersion of me being in this world countless times. In fact, it became more funny than entertaining to watch scenes play out. As for the design of terrains, I really like the use of particle effects throughout the fire-filled parts of hell. Even when the game was struggling to run everything perfectly, those design backgrounds stood out. Some of the more earthly sections featured some more generic textures and model designs that easily got lost in the background. Perhaps some of the funniest parts to watch during gameplay are the character dialogue sequences. Something just comes off as off-putting having to watch these. The lip sync can be so off sometimes it feels like I'm watching a translated dub version of a game in its native language. Only it's not. It's just that off when it comes to synchronization. Even though it was awkward to see a lot of these cutscenes play out, I have to hand it to the actors, they nailed their performances. Don't get me wrong, I still think a lot of the story's characters need to be better explained and brought up, but in terms of performance, the actors nailed it. Even though I don't like Desmond as a character all that much, I can hear and feel the disdain he has throughout Hell. It was these performances that would get me to pay attention to what was going on, long after the bad animated speech was still on screen. Devil's Hunt feels like a prototype, like something that would be used in a Kickstarter trailer to show off the scope of a project and gather funding. What's here now, what I played, feels like a concept game, not a final game. The combat and platforming felt generic with a story that just wasn't that interesting. Add on all the technical issues I faced, and well, this feels like a game that only got done a quarter of the way there.